Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I happen to agree with my colleague. Actions speak louder than words, and we need action. And that's what I hope that we see here today, not just in the week leading up to this hearing, we all of a sudden find a conscience and start action. So let me start with you, Dr. Emanuel. On October 18th, 23, DePaul Students for Justice in Palestine held a rally calling for the intifada revolution, encouraging terrorist attacks to be perpetuated against Jewish civilians. On the same day, Jewish student leaders contacted DePaul administrators expressing feelings of saying they were increasingly scared that the safety and for the safety of the Jewish community. Does that ring a bell? Okay. The following day, October 19th, 2023, pro-Hamas rallies on campus resulted in the physical assault of a Jewish student. Sound familiar? 6 months later, on April 29th, 24, a pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas mob occupied DePaul's Lincoln Park campus. So there was an encampment on April 29th, correct?
Correct.
Did you remove it or disable it on that day?
No.
Welcome back to America First, Patriots. If you're watching this channel, you know we're committed to exposing the failures of our institutions and holding them accountable. Before we dive into today's shocking footage, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that puts America first. Ring that notification bell, because we're not backing down from the hard truths. Today we're reacting to Congresswoman Lisa McClain absolutely destroying a college president over his pathetic response to pro-Hamas encampments on campus. What you're about to see is exactly what's wrong with higher education in America today, and why parents are losing faith in these institutions that they're paying tens of thousands of dollars to attend.
No, we did not.
Okay. Why?
Representative, we learned an awful lot from...
I'm not asking what you learned. I'm asking why you made the decision, because I'm going to refer you to your policy that you have in place. Why didn't you follow your policy?
Our immediate instinct was to work with our students. The reference...
How'd that go?
Not very
well. You want to ask Michael how that went?
Yeah, it did not go very well.
Thank you.
And I apologize for that.
Your apologies are a little hollow. On May 10th, you issued a statement. So the encampment's still there, April 29th. It's now May 10th. On May 10th, you issued a statement titled Quad Safety Concerns. So you knew there was a safety issue, hence issuing the statement. Here was the statement. You urged all members of the DePaul community to avoid the quad. Well, that's great. Again, hey, let's make sure that we attack the law-abiding citizens, but not deal with the problem of the encampment. So you knew yourself there was a problem, but decided not to remove it. Why?
So that at that moment, we realized that the security and safety of everybody was in jeopardy. That is the moment that we decided to work with CPD.
And it took you 6 days?
Our public safety officer...
No, it took you 6 days because you knew it was dangerous. You didn't remove it on the 10th. You didn't remove it until 6 days later. So it took you 6 days to coordinate an effort to remove an encampment?
It took us the moment we realized. We went to CPD and asked for...
Which was when? When did you realize you had a problem?
We started working with CPD from the first day so that they were aware of those situations.
Okay, so 3 weeks. It took you 3 weeks?
It took us from the time you mentioned until the 16th or 17th to coordinate with CPD to get...
You think that's acceptable?
I do not. And
okay, wonderful. So I don't think the issue is more policies. I think the issue is action. So the people that are in charge, would you say that that is an acceptable amount of time for action?
I would agree with you that we need to do better.
Great. So would you agree with me also that almost 3 weeks from the 29th to the 16th is not an acceptable time for security to take action to disassemble an encampment? Would you agree with me on that?
I would. And
thank you very much. So who has been fired or who has been replaced? Because that doesn't seem real tough to me. Anybody?
What we have learned...
Anybody been replaced?
There has been turnover. It's not...
I'm not asking turnover. What consequences happened for the people who were supposed to be in charge?
The development of our accountability
Any
culture.
consequences? Yeah, were there, let's start with a simple,
retraining.
let's start with a simple one. Any consequences?
To student groups, yes.
Not to, I'm talking to the people who didn't follow your procedures of 3 weeks. Because let me just read it, just in case you don't know your policy, but let me read it. This is from your policy. May not impede passage or in or out of any facility, may not involve activity that is violent or otherwise threatens the safety of demonstrators or any members of the community, may not interfere with business or academics of the university. These are your policies did anyone get reprimanded for that?
What I mentioned is that we have done significant review and learned from this.
You don't need to do
accountability is
review. Was anyone held accountable other than Michael and his friend that sustained a concussion and a broken wrist? So what actions changed? Because you got great policies and you got great lip service. The problem is you need action. And unless you as the president of the university is willing to take action, not lip service, I can talk about working out all day long, but there's a lot difference between me working out and me talking about it. So my question is, if there is another encampment on that, are you taking?
Let me break down what happened at DePaul University, because this timeline is absolutely infuriating. On October 18th, 2023, we had students literally calling for intifada revolution and encouraging terrorist attacks against Jewish civilians. The very next day, a Jewish student was physically assaulted during pro-Hamas rallies. This is on American soil at an American university that receives federal funding. But here's where it gets worse. Fast forward to April 29th, 2024, and these pro-Hamas activists set up an illegal encampment on campus. What did the administration do? Absolutely nothing. They decided to work with the students instead of enforcing their own policies. Dr. Emanuel, the president, admits this approach failed miserably, but apparently that wasn't enough to change course. Think about this for a moment. We have clear policy violations happening in real time. Students are being threatened, Jewish students are being assaulted, and the administration's response is to negotiate with people who are openly supporting a terrorist organization. This is the same terrorist organization that massacred over 1,200 innocent people on October 7th, including Americans. The university's own policies are crystal clear. No impeding access to facilities, no violent activity, no interference with university business. These encampments violated every single one of these rules, and yet the administration sat on their hands for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of allowing chaos to reign while law-abiding students lived in fear. What's particularly disgusting is that on May 10th, the university issued a safety warning telling everyone to avoid the quad area. So they knew it was dangerous enough to warn people away, but not dangerous enough to actually solve the problem. They essentially told the innocent students to change their behavior while accommodating the rule breakers. This is backwards thinking that's destroying our institutions. Representative McClain asked the crucial question that every parent should be asking. Who was held accountable? The answer is nobody. There were no firings, no disciplinary actions for the administrators who failed to do their jobs. Meanwhile, students like Michael suffered real physical harm, including concussion and broken wrist, because these cowards in leadership positions refuse to act. This is exactly why confidence in higher education is plummeting. Parents are sending their children to institutions that claim to provide a safe learning environment, but when push comes to shove, these administrators cave to the loudest and most violent voices on campus. They're more concerned about appearing progressive than protecting the students who are actually following the rules. The 3-week timeline is particularly damning because it shows this wasn't a snap decision or a moment of confusion. This was a deliberate choice to allow lawlessness to continue. Every single day that encampment remained was another day the administration chose politics over safety, ideology over institutional integrity. What makes this even more outrageous is the double standard we consistently see. If conservative students had set up an encampment and were calling for violence, do you think it would have taken 3 weeks to remove them? Of course not. They would have been gone within hours, and we all know it. But because this was a left-wing cause célèbre, Suddenly the rules don't apply. This is bigger than just one university. This pattern is playing out across campuses nationwide. We're seeing administrators who are either too weak or too ideologically captured to maintain basic order. They're allowing anti-Semitism to flourish under the guise of free speech, while simultaneously shutting down conservative voices for far less controversial positions. The fact that Representative McClain had to drag these basic facts out of Dr. Emanuel shows how reluctant these administrators are to take responsibility. His answers were evasive, filled with bureaucratic doublespeak about learning and reviewing instead of concrete actions. This is exactly the kind of leadership failure that's eroding trust in our institutions. Parents need to understand that when they send their children to universities like this, they're not just paying for an education. They're funding institutions that will prioritize political correctness over their child's safety. They're supporting administrators who will negotiate with extremists while telling their paying customers to avoid parts of the campus. The solution here isn't complicated. Universities need to enforce their own policies consistently, regardless of the political message. They need administrators with a backbone to say no to illegal encampments, whether they're pro-Hamas, pro-communist, or promoting any other radical ideology. And they need real consequences for leadership failures, not just empty promises to do better next time. What we saw in this hearing should be a wake-up call for every American who cares about the future of higher education. These institutions have become breeding grounds for radical ideology, and they're using your tax dollars and tuition payments to fund it. Until we demand real accountability and real change, this pattern will continue. The fact that it took a congressional hearing to get even basic acknowledgement of these failures shows how far we've fallen. These administrators should have been fired the moment they decided to negotiate with pro-terrorist encampments instead of enforcing the law. Patriots, this is why we can't give up the fight for our institutions. Every vote matters, every voice matters, and every dollar you spend matters. Stop funding institutions that hate America and American values. Demand better from your representatives, and hold these administrators accountable for their failures. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to America First for more content that puts our country first. Share this with everyone you know who needs to understand what's really happening on our college campuses. The mainstream media won't tell you the truth, so it's up to channels like ours to keep you informed. Stay vigilant. Stay informed, and remember that America's future depends on citizens who are willing to stand up for what's right, even when the institutions we once trusted have failed us. We'll see you in the next video, and as always, America First.